And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. Here at the Smash News Network, these busted name and news, we're not into the fear-mongering, fraud, nonsense, and propaganda. We're into things like facts, so let's drop some. Here's the magnetohydrodynamic pressure around planet Earth, out to about 12 Earth diameters. We're going to let that play through. It's over the past 4 hours, assuming it doesn't refresh. It's our Geospace Magnetosphere movie, how we typically lead off our in-depth solar fields and features segments. Talking about things like coronal holes, sunspots, the heliospheric current sheet, and more. Were there any coronal mass ejections? We'll cover it. By the way, NOAA is forecasting one to strike early in the morning tomorrow on March 20th. So anyway, that's the last 4 hours. Things pretty calm around the geospace. There's your GOES magnetometer readings for the past 3 days. The GOES magnetometers on the GOES 16 and GOES 17 satellites, which are geosynchronous near equatorial satellites. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground magnetic perturbations map showing geospace delta B in magnetic flux density, or nanotesla. Anyway, these are changes to Earth's B field over the past 4 hours. Pretty calm on the surface as well as in space. We show it daily to help people corroborate the data and figure out which data sets go with which other graphics. Immersion in the data, folks. It can be the only way to get a deeper understanding of the physics. Next, looking at the real-time solar wind, which is pretty unremarkable here, except for how slow it is. Check out the speeds. They made it all the way down to 273 kilometers per second. Incredibly slow solar wind speed. Current conditions only 286 kilometers per second. Solar wind density here ramping up a bit to about 10.5 protons per cubic centimeter. The rest of those panes are largely inconsequential and unremarkable. But that's the real-time solar wind. Next, we'll look at the heliospheric current sheet. And I still say we're going to see some sunspots in the southeast coming. They may rise, they may just sort of form. But that's the heliospheric current sheet. Earth is in a North Pole current sheet, as you can see here in green. That's the North Pole current sheet. Over here in red is the South. Keep in mind the magnetic environment can suddenly change. Here's the line of sight view. It also shows the solar magnetogram as we watch the progression of solar cycle 25. Next, we'll look at coronal holes. Coronal holes are like low-pressure systems on the sun, folks. The thing about stellar low-pressure systems is that they're so low that they blast protons out into space. Yeah, earthly low-pressure systems aren't quite as low in terms of their effect on the rest of the solar system. In this low-pressure system has protons spewing out of it at a very high rate of speed. That's just what coronal holes do. Those are North Pole-oriented coronal holes right there. This whole system right here. That's 193 angstroms from the SDO. Here's a diagram of it in magnetogram view from the National Sunspot Observatory. The blue lines there are the B field. And you can see those are what we would call trans-equatorial coronal holes there. Both the north and southern ones. North in green, south in red, stretching beyond the solar equator. As the solar polar field reversal process continues, we call it a solar cycle. Solar cycle 25. Next, moving to sunspots, and we've seen a reduction of sunspots and the radio flux. Radio flux now down to 28 solar flux units. Not 28, 98. Not 28 solar flux units, folks. 98 solar flux units for the radio flux. As we're watching sunspot 2965 set, it's still capable of producing large flares. It is still quite complex. Maybe not as complex as a few days ago, though. It looks like it's degrading. And here it is visually. This is 1700 angstroms, the extreme ultraviolet wavelength. It basically shows you the chromosphere. of the closest star. Again, sunspots are looking like they're degrading here. We do have a new group risen over here. Sunspot 2971 has actually degraded. I'm not even sure if that's a sunspot anymore. Make sure you tune into our bonus features segment if you want to see all the close-ups of that. Next, the X-ray flux here over the past 3 days. Only one minor C-class intensification peak flux of that was at 4:10 this morning, 4:10 on March 19th. That's 4:10 universal time. And one of the best wavelengths to view flares is 94 angstroms. You'll see this C-class intensification did indeed come from sunspot 2965. Is that what it's called? 2965? 2965. Never memorize something you can look up. So at least one more sunspot group. This is a beta class group, so the second most likely place to see significant flares would be from this group here. It'll be known as Sunspot 2972, I think. Let's go back for a quick moment. I think that's 2972 will be the name of that. Very slow solar wind speed and a general reduction in solar activity. No spikes in the proton flux. Planetary K-index, a measurement of global geomagnetism at 2, KP2 is the current situation. Here's the situation in the solar system. And if you're up before dawn, you may see a planetary pileup consisting of Mars, Venus, Mercury, and Saturn rising ahead of the sun. Let's do a 1-week forecast. There's where things will be in a week. By then, we'll have a crescent waning moon. I like to show a star chart regularly also. And if you're up before dawn, you may see Mars, Venus, Saturn, Mercury, and Jupiter all rising ahead of the sun. So an exciting planetary pileup for you morning pre-dawn viewers. This chart is from in-the-sky.org. The yellow line is the ecliptic. The blue line is the galactic plane. Make sure you follow us on Twitter if you don't. If you don't have an account, get an account. We're also on Facebook, so please share the content. Apparently, we need your assistance to do so, since the algorithms don't seem to do so. Now, Facebook actively shadow bans certain content. I don't know why. It's just because big tech can't do their own job. And by the way, we make just this side of nothing to put the content on YouTube. So thanks to everybody who supported the channel financially throughout the years. As we're aware that you're seeing ads. We're just barely paid for them. So press like, press subscribe, press share. Visit the links, become a member of the Smash team. It's superior to Patreon. Next, looking at coronal mass ejections, here's the view from stereo A at Lagrange 5 and the LASCO C3 at Lagrange 1. And we don't see any CMEs. So let's close this thing out and call it a day. Thanks for tuning into the channel. Congratulations on realizing it exists. And may that solar wind be at your back.